borrowing from Native American traditions, they have a thing called council. So there are a lot of stories how council came about, but one of them is that you know, when the Native Americans you know, welcomed white folks into their circles to speak for whatever reason. Ben, maybe you can remind us, but they found that they spoke so much that they started to use something called the talking stick. So the talking stick is in the middle. If you want to speak, you go in, you pick up the talking stick, and then the person who has the talking stick speaks, and whoever else has to listen. And you listen until the person stops talking, and then he puts the talking stick back, and then whoever wants to speak next will pick up the talking stick. Anyway, this is a very, very simplified version of what council is. So if we were to do this in person, we would be using that practice. It's not to misappropriate or whatever, but it's to borrow something that will help us create a space where we can speak freely and then have our friends listen to us. So it's going to be a little bit different virtually, that we won't have a stick. You guys can think about what you want to use, but just sharing a little bit about the spirit of council. It's a method of dialogue that allows for deep listening to self and other. It is a method of shared leadership by using a talking stick. It could be a stone, a branch, or any other object. The opportunity to share is evenly available to each participant. When it is your turn to hold a talking piece, it is also your turn to share. At other times, you are asked to listen attentively, to try to discern what narratives are emerging. Do not interrupt, ask questions, or comment. Listen as deeply as you can. If a person chooses, they may decide not to share and simply pass the talking stick to the next person. Please keep in mind, however, that the complexity of thought that is possible increases as each member of the group stretches to share his or her piece of the mosaic. In the work we will be doing this morning and this afternoon, there will be several opportunities to share and many more to listen deeply. In this council format, we will not be engaged in debate or discussion. So you will go into your small group sessions. We will initiate each round by asking a question. I will share that in a minute. We will take several moments of silence to allow a response to arise within us. Please also pause between speakers so that we have the time to really absorb what has been shared before another person begins to speak. It will deepen our process if we can each keep in mind the 4 intentions of counsel. Speak from the heart, listen from the heart, be of lean expression, and speak spontaneously. So again, remember, it's not about debate or discussion. And in your own groups, use something that will be the talking stick. Either you use an emoji, and then you put it on the screen and say, that's the time you want to speak, and then you speak and everyone will listen. Okay, so this is our first session. Small group council 1, we call it. You will all be going into 5 groups. We've already assigned those, so you will, when I say press go, you will go into your groups, and this is your question. What is the legacy, positive and negative, of this intersection in your life currently? So what does that mean? I mean that it's talking about connected to the journal questions yesterday, as well as the whole conversation yesterday. What is the legacy of this intersection in your life currently? So that's taking some of what you shared this morning that may have stirred stories for different ones of you. So what is the legacy, positive and negative, if you were to be objective, to just call it what it is? How does it affect your thoughts, your relations to others, and or your experience in the workplace? And it doesn't have to be workplace. It could be, life place, work, play, whatever place, just place. You may find yourself extending what you have already reflected on, or you may find that new intersections arise with these questions. Take 5 minutes to reflect on this before sharing. Feel free to make notes for yourself. So you have your journal, you're now already thinking about these questions. So when you go into your room, again, take a few minutes. And then whoever wants to pick up the talking stick, the talking stone, the talking emoji, you do that. And then, again, there's no right, wrong, no correct or, better or worse answers. This is your own story. This is us finding our voice. This is us trying to surface silenced words or silenced knowings. And of course, if a place doesn't feel that safe, you take care of that for yourself. This is not a requirement, to go deep and reveal everything, reveal all your scars or whatever. And maybe that's what you want to do. But, be gentle on yourself. So we're going to do this for 30 minutes. You will be in your room. So there'll be about 6 of you in each room. So you will have your moment, whether it's 4 minutes or so, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 2 minutes, doesn't matter. You've had one round of sharing, and then you can have another round, just building on each other. Okay. And then we'll come back. All right. Bye-bye. Okay. Let's spend the next half an hour sharing, harvesting some of what you experienced in your breakout councils. Similarly, if you want to treat this like a main room council, you can do that. So pick up the stick when you want to share.
Our discussion, there's 2 words that I think. First word is, once saya dengar, is nationalism. It's quite connected to our topics, I think. And then the second thing, we also talk a little bit about soft power. So I think these 2 words, soft power is like sports, universities. So I think it's really a factor, one of the factor in colonialism this day and globalization. And yeah, nationalism and soft power. We tend to believe that in the educational system, if you want to success from anybody else, you need to study abroad, like go to the UK, to the US, Canada, and everything. So I think it's a kind of mindset of the colonial system. So I think I don't mention like university is a colonizer, but it's one of the shape, or it's one of the method that I refer to soft power, because we don't really see it, but it's kind of colonize our mindset that if you want to be successful, you must go to university, you must study this, you must study at this university and everything. Nothing wrong about that, but sometimes make people too rigid for their development, for their moving forward, I think. Yeah.
So we started our discussion with trying to understand what is this question? What is this question? What does it mean by intersection? What does it mean by legacy? Legacy means, what do you want to live in this world after you die? So we Google and yeah, something like that. So we started off with that, trying to define the questions, and then we just continue. So I started sharing, telling about, I grew up with a circle with the environment. This may be not correct, but I grew up with like second class Sabahans. My circle, we live in low cost flats, low cost terrace apartments. We don't have land. We don't play with trees. My circle is that we live in the city center, but like at the bottom of it. That's my environment. We don't think about decolonization, all the stuff. And this type of environment, it's packed, you see. When you live in a packed environment, you often need to compete. So that's the effect of globalization. You live like sardines. So globalization makes you competitive. It makes you very individualistic. So when you're in that environment, you don't have much option, but you just need to choose the nearest school. You just need to choose the nearest bus stop. Trying to get back to topic. So you cannot afford to think about liberating. You can afford to think about these topics. You're tired, you're just living day to day. You don't even have the literature, the knowledge to explain the system that you're in. So we started off with that, and then we continued with other sharing, and then just as we go on, I don't know what came to me, but I just took notes lah. So I just sharing it here with you guys, because I think it was a good discussion, even though it was short. So it seems for future legacy, for them to survive, we as caregivers. So in my group, I think our age were like not like, I don't know, like 30 plus ish, 30-ish. So it seems for us, like I think collectively we think that the way we live, the way we grew up with, it makes us think that we just gotta try our best to give our legacy a good start in life, prep them into a good place where do they start, where do they live, where they will get education, the opportunities they will see, what their parents get, they will see the same, gender, ethnicity. And then as you grow up, the circle you grow up with determines how you see the world. So that's what I sense in my group, because we share about how we all grow up. It makes us see the world. It makes us see the opportunities based on how we grow up. Yeah. And then it makes us see how the Bumi Putra privilege play a very, very big role, and that our family's income also plays a strong part. And then while also growing up, we intersect with this topic of ethnicity. So like you're a Bajau, but you have a friend that is also a Bajau, but this Bajau friend is so fluent in the language, but you're not. So it's there's something there, but you just can't explain what is it. But it made you feel different. Okay. So you're affected by that, but you don't know how to feel about that. Yeah. And then lastly, we mentioned about globalization again, and then we thought about how we were all in the middle in Forever Sabah. So in Forever Sabah, we act a lot as intermediaries, as coordinators, as facilitators. We act as the middlemen in between people, in between all these personalities. So we feel the pressure to empathize and connect with the demands of globalization and with the responses we get from the grassroots. So globalization versus traditional interaction. So yeah, I mean, I'm sorry if some of I said maybe not right. Please, for the friends in my breakout room, please correct if you guys want to add more, please. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Yana. So say another 10 minutes. Any more offerings?
I was telling my group just now how it was really funny that this question of legacy came up, because that word had sort of been swimming in my mind since last night, you know, this idea of legacy. Because like I was mentioning earlier, like I was talking to my group a little bit earlier about that idea of like generational guilt, right? Of like sort of inheriting the experiences and the decisions of your past generations, and sort of like the part you play in it today. And I think I've always been very conscious. I'm a tiptoer, you know. I like to tiptoe around situations. I don't like to make plans. I don't like to set goals and things like that. I think I have this fear of putting my name on things because of, I fear like taking up too much space because of this feeling of the space that's already been taken up by me and my family. And, you know, not even talking about like past generations, even the me of today, right? The opportunities that I've been afforded, whether it's because of my family or because of how I look and things like that, you know, it plays into my mind, and like this inability to sort of like set myself, like I was mentioning just now, like Jan, Kenneth, and Isaac, they have headaches with me all the time because they're always asking like, Emily, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. But I remember like I brought up earlier about how I was working on this like short documentary a few years back, and the documentary was centered around the Huminodun folktale and like the origins of it and stuff like that. And the most enjoyable part of that whole experience was like the research part, the initial part of like talking to people and like learning about like things that I didn't know. But at the same, and to be very honest, like that whole experience really impacted me and sort of like the person that I am today. But I don't talk about it much because I think there was this sense of, we had a very short time crunch to do this documentary. I think from research phase to the release, it was about 2 months. And we were also working within a company that had ties to like, we did some work with the Kaamatan Festival and with KDCA and stuff like that. So we had to be a little bit sensitive. So in a lot of ways, I wasn't entirely proud of what came out of it, but I was really impacted by the stories that I learned from that experience. And part of it is also the fact, like I mentioned, I talked to Professor Jackie, who, like, I mean, ironic, like, you know, like to find out about my own culture, I have to go to like a white woman who, no insult to her, I love Professor Jackie, I could talk to her all day, but you know, just the irony of that, of like that whole process, you know. But so I think I was talking to my group earlier about how like I had this tendency to be afraid to put my name on things and to sort of like leave any kind of legacy at all. I in my head, I think that if I stay still enough and don't make any movements, that it'll be almost like I'm not here and I won't leave any sort of like impact, negative or otherwise, positive, negative or otherwise. But like through the reflections of the past few days, I've realized that no matter what, like even just being born into this situation that I'm in, born into the family that I'm in, born into the privilege that I've been afforded, that I'm leaving a legacy whether I want to confront it or not. So that was an interesting thing. And Ken Wilson brought up a very lovely point about the world being very complicated and all of us, you know, sort of trying to like unpack all the different complexities of who we are and what colonialization means to different people and the roles we play within it. So yeah, that was I just wanted to share a bit about that.
Okay, it's 11:20. Let's take a break for, is 10 minutes good?